A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. One of those at table with Jesus said to him, "Blessed is the one who will dine in the kingdom of God." He replied to him, "A man gave a great dinner to which he invited many. When the time for the dinner came, he dispatched his servant to say to those invited, 'Come, everything is now ready.' But one by one, they all began to excuse themselves. The first said to him, 'I have purchased a field and must go to examine it. I ask you, consider me excused.' And another said, 'I have purchased 5 yoke of oxen and am on my way to evaluate them. I ask you, consider me excused.' And another said, 'I have just married a woman, and therefore I cannot come.' The servant went and reported this to the master. Then the master of the house, in a rage, commanded his servant, 'Go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town, and bring in here the poor and the crippled, the blind and the lame.' The servant reported, 'Sir, your orders have been carried out, and still there's room.' The master then ordered the servant, 'Go out to the highways and hedgerows, and make people come in, that my home may be filled. For I tell you, none of those men who were invited will taste my dinner.'" The Gospel of the Lord. Have you ever experienced rejection? Have you ever reached a point where your feelings were invalidated? Have you ever felt left out or not chosen? Because all of these feelings were experienced by the master of the house in Jesus' parable of the great feast. Despite all his grand preparations, the invited guests never showed up due to prior commitments. Conversely speaking, how many times have we rejected God's invitation? Rejection hurts. The parable of the great feast further illustrates the rejection by Israel, God's chosen people, of Jesus' invitation to share in the banquet of the kingdom of God. It also emphasizes the invitation extended to other Jews who are seen as the poor, crippled, blind, and lame, representing those who acknowledge their need for salvation, as well as to the Gentiles. As mentioned, rejection truly hurts, especially if it comes through someone whom you genuinely love. It is one of the realities of human experience, where one feels unwelcome and invalidated, especially if the reason seems so unreasonable. Jesus is not saying that the reasons mentioned by the guests are unacceptable. Rather, he wants to convey the message that those reasons are about worldly preoccupations. Nonetheless, the parable leads us toward greater realities, that is, God's plan to share with us in the heavenly banquet. We are called to love. Saint Teresa of Calcutta says, "Love until it hurts." Perhaps rejection is no longer alien when it comes to love. Because when we love, we also accept that in the long run, we may experience rejection, just as the master of the house did. Conversely, when we sin, we also become like those invited guests, who despite God's continuous invitation, tend to take things for granted. Additionally, like them, we become too preoccupied with the hustle and bustle of life. In a doctrinal sense, the Catechism of the Catholic Church states that sin is an offense against reason, truth, and right conscience. It is failure in genuine love for God and neighbor, caused by a perverse attachment to certain goods. Hence, sin becomes the rejection or refusal of God's love. By sinning, we tend to disregard God's grace by which we are called to sanctity, that we may find ourselves also in the greater scheme of things. Moreover, sin is not always about what we do, but also what we fail to do. The Catechism states that the first commandment summons man to believe in God, to hope in Him, to love Him above all else. Sins of omission are sins that leave undone the good or duties that we are obliged to. Nonetheless, do not be discouraged, because God's grace overflows. Grace is the help that God gives us to respond to our vocation of becoming His adopted sons. Dear Thomasians, God, the Divine Master, awaits us in the heavenly banquet. For us Catholics, the most tangible experience of this divine banquet is the Holy Eucharist. It is the sacrifice of thanksgiving, a blessing by which we are called to partake. Let us love God through our acts of thanksgiving and by showing gratitude through receiving Christ in the Holy Eucharist. The Divine Master is waiting for you at His heavenly banquet, yet the question remains unanswered. Dear Thomasians, will you accept His invitation?